All right, good afternoon and welcome everyone. Welcome to our event, a call to collective care. My name is Whitney Terrell and I'm delighted to serve as your host for today's Earth Day multi-faith live stream. On the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, 3 organizations, the Kaleo Center, Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, and Minnesota Multi-Faith Network have teamed up to bring you inspiration and calls to care for creation. Our hearts are heavy as we've been unable to be together in person, but we hold our hearts with those impacted by this pandemic, as well as those who risk their health and safety so we can have access to food, healthcare, and other essential services. During this unusual time, we recognize that climate is still important, and we hope that invitations to enjoy stories, spiritual practice, music, poetry, and other actions will mean your Earth Day is uplifted and gifted to share a commitment with each other. We have insightful speakers from multiple traditions who are excited to give us all pathways to care for the earth and each other in this process. Before we move on to our lineup of speakers, we have just a few housekeeping items. We want to make our conferencing platform Zoom as friendly as possible. Please use chat for shared comments or reflections on the speakers, but we also want to let you know that there's MNIPL staff on hand to help you if you have any technical issues. And feel free to share your picture, your video, if you want to share with us who's in the room with you. Please keep any comments that you post respectful and look out for action opportunities that'll be appearing in during the live stream as well. And so, yeah, this is going to be a great day. We have a great lineup for you, and we'll start off with welcoming Analia Schleger dos Santos, MNIPL's Youth Program Coordinator for Land Acknowledgement. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Okay, so I know everyone is listening in. I know everyone's should be muted, but I'd like to have everyone take a second and close your eyes, please. And let's take a couple deep breaths all together. Let's take 3 deep breaths. All right, you may keep your eyes closed if you'd like. I'm just going to read a quick land acknowledgement. The land that we are gathering on here today in Minnesota, I know we've got people all over the place, but the land we gather on is the original homeland of the Dakota people. We honor and respect all Indigenous peoples who were forcibly removed from and who are still connected to and protect this territory. We pay our respects to our elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. And we recognize and honor them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We are making this acknowledgement to honor the Dakota people, ancestors, descendants, as well as the land itself that we are on. MNIPL is committed to ongoing efforts to recognize, support, and advocate for American Indian nations and peoples and all historical trauma. Everyone can open their eyes and we're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you for that land acknowledgement, Analia. At this time, I'd like to welcome Rabbi Ariel Likosh Rosenberg, to welcome her to offer a spiritual practice. Rabbi Ariel Likosh Rosenberg, are you available?
Hi everyone, my name is Ariel Lekach Rosenberg. I am one of the rabbis at Shir Tikva, a progressive Jewish community in South Minneapolis on Dakota ancestral land and Anishinaabe territory. It's my joy to get to be with you this morning as we settle into this day of celebrating our amazing earth and calling each other into more audacious action. So I'm going to sing, and I really want to invite you to sing along with me, to use this time of singing to breathe, to settle, to allow your shoulders to relax, and to come into a place of deep listening, that we might be able to come through this day together more connected, more visionary, and more courageous. The earth needs us, our communities need us, species need us, our hearts need us to be able to hold in this work, to be able to join in solidarity with those on front lines, working against pipelines, working for more healthy and more connected community, and for an earth that exists so many generations into the future. So I'm going to sing a song that is taken from Psalm 118. The words are, "From a narrow place I call out and receive an answer from the expanse." And I think that this is, for me, an intention in work, in justice work for the earth, that when we come to this narrow place, and we have found ourselves in such a narrow place, a place of extractive capitalism, a place of conquest, where our bodies carry the traumas and the realities of colonial acts, of violence and genocide, of gentrification, of such disrespect to the earth and to our bodies. And we get to inhabit this narrow place together, to call out and to act together, and to hear the expanse calling us, to hear healing and transformation and new prophetic possibilities calling us. Here goes. Let's sing together. Whether you know, whether these are familiar words or whether you just want to sing Yai to Die along with me, please sing. Min hamnetzar karatia anani b'merchavya min hametzar 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 karatia anani b'merchavya.
We'd like to thank Rabbi Arya Lakash Rosenberg for that contribution, and then welcome Susan Raffel for her, and also to welcome her video. Actually, she wasn't able to be here with us today, but we're so grateful for her video, and hope you enjoy it.
Hello, friends. Every resource we have, from the food we eat, to the oil we pump out of the ground, to the wood that is used to build our homes, and to the other side of chemistry in a lab, meaning plastics and microfibers, every resource we have exists because of a dance between sunlight and oxygen. Here in Minnesota, the days are growing longer, and the trees are thirsty, unfurling. Soft green, that gorgeous exhale of leaves. Soon they'll be big enough to zip-zing their oxygen into the air. That air that is an ocean that winds and tide circles the planet. All of that freshness moving its way towards your inhale, towards our inhale, right now. If you have access to your breath as an unthinking thing, in this moment of lungs as COVID caution,
While we work on those, work on the fixing the sound, we just wanted to tell you a little bit more also about Susan while we're working on that. Susan is a body worker, writer, and cultural worker living in Minneapolis. As you can tell, she offers a great deal, and I think we have that fixed for you. So let's try it again.
hello, friends. Every resource we have, from the food we eat, to the oil we pump out of the ground, to the wood that is used to build our homes, and to the other side of chemistry in a lab, meaning plastics and microfibers, every resource we have exists as a dance between sunlight and oxygen. Here in Minnesota, the days are growing longer, and the trees are thirsty, unfurling, soft green, that gorgeous exhale of leaves. Soon they'll be big enough to zip-zing their oxygen into the air. That air that is an ocean that winds and tide circles the planet. All of the freshness moving its way towards your inhale, towards our inhale, right now. If you have access to your breath as an unthinking thing, in this moment of lungs as COVID caution, of breathing as something that even more kin than usual are struggling to maintain, then these words are spoken as a prayer to the inhale and the exhale, to all who are using machines to help breathing happen. This is a spark of love that wants to twirl like juice along this electric line. Lungs tight, the constriction response to a virus, to a world in overwhelm, too much crap in the air, too much harm to kin generations back that continues to the now. The eyes of the state that keep watch alongside grief that's flogging the channels where the air wants to come in. We hold our breath instinctively, unthinkingly, until it's safe enough to shudder, exhale, release. This is about being safe. I want you to be safe, and I know for that to happen, we all must be safe. No breath exists separate from the reach of trees and moths, nor from the tender watchfulness of those kin nearby who will fight to make sure that your breath, our breath, is protected. I once heard an elder explain that we would not recognize the air of 50,000 or even 5,000 years ago. It was just more full of itself. We were different then. I think our bodies have adjusted. We had to. The last time the atmosphere carried the amount of carbon dioxide that it carries now, as a species, we didn't yet exist. Most of our plant relatives did not yet exist. we were a world that was just becoming. Sitting right here, breathing in and breathing out. This oxygen gift of trees, of moss, of the algae in the oceans that are left after my species, our species, has oversmoked, overcut, diminished, decimated the world's lungs. I wonder at how much beginnings and maybe endings have in common. Your breath, my breath, our breath. Now breathe.
We want to thank Susan Raffo again for her contribution, and we invite Louisa Van Os for her story. And Louisa is a senior from Duluth Marshall High School and is planning to head to DePaul next year for Peace, Justice, and Conflict Studies and for Spanish. She will be speaking on fostering one's personal relationship with the creation. Louisa, thank you for joining us. And for those of you who are having technical issues, we do see your comments and we'll work on those too. Thank you for joining.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Louisa, and I was asked to share about why I care about climate justice and our Earth and how that relates to caring for others. So I'm just going to dive right into my story. It was one of the first really nice days in spring here in Duluth. It was relatively warm out. The sun was out. The warmth of the sun on your face is a wonderful feeling. There was only a few clouds in the sky, and so a friend invited me to go on a trail run with him. And I decided to take advantage of the nice day despite my lack of enthusiasm for cardio. So I grabbed my trail shoes and a water bottle, and I head to the local nature reserve to meet up with my friend. Like I said, the sun was shining. I was nice and warm. We were blocked from the wind. And I'm starting to feel that wonderful runner's high. So we're about 3 miles in. We're about ready to turn back, and it starts to pour. I'm talking torrential downpour out of nowhere. So we find a tree to take cover, which in hindsight wasn't a great idea. I recognize that. But there was no thunder, and more importantly, there was no lightning. So we climbed up around 10 feet, and we were sitting there in what was actually a pretty cool tree. He told me later that it was one of his favorites. And, I'm wet and I'm cold. I'm a little annoyed looking at a 3-mile run back, but he told me to give in. Give in to the pounding rain and the swirling wind, to the beautiful force of nature, of creation. And so I gave in. I admit it's hard for me to slow down. I'm constantly running from one thing to the next, no pun intended, but in that moment, amidst the pounding rain, once I gave in, everything was still. I felt as though God reached out their hands to me and held me, held us, reached out their hands as if saying, "You're safe. I got you." Isaiah 45:8 says, "Heavens above, rain down my righteousness. Let the clouds shower it down. Let the earth open up wide. Let salvation spring up. Let righteousness flourish with it. For I, the Lord, have created it." Never before had I experienced that level of calm, that level of security. I was no longer wet or cold or annoyed, but I was present, fully present in this beautiful creation. That was my story, but I challenge you to be present, to find your own story, to unplug electronics and plug into nature, to face-to-face interaction, to genuine human connection, to create space for you to open yourself up to the beauty of human vulnerability in the vastness of creation. I think one of the best ways for us to foster caring relationships with creation is by fostering relationships with one another. To live in beloved community and to truly care for creation is to coexist with our brothers, sisters, siblings, coexist in this wonderful creation. A Spanish proverb says, "El amor todo lo puede." Love can do it all. Love for others, love for self, and love for creation is how we foster a movement. Only when those three join together are we truly living in beloved community, beloved creation. So organize your rally, march to Capitol steps, donate to an organization working to care for our Mother Earth, write a letter to your senator. But I think most importantly, when looking at the creation care and the work of environmentalism and caring for our Earth, is to dive into creation with an open heart and an open mind and provide space for others to do the same. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for that great story and great challenge for us to create our own stories and share them with others. It's such a great time actually for that reminder. We want to invite you all to share your picture and to share that with our director at MNIPL, Julia, with a hashtag Earth Day Minnesota, or another that I've listed in the chat here, like Faith Climate Voter, if that is something that you believe in as well. But you can just write on a sign for love of whatever stands out to you about Earth or the environment and in your experiences, and that you stand for climate justice. So check out the chat and send Julia a picture if you'd like. And with that, we'd actually like to share some of the pictures that have already been sent in. With that, what would Earth Day be without a true way to celebrate? And so we'd like to welcome some music from Willie Wisely. Willie is a Minnesota musician. He's a veteran and longtime Laurel Canyon resident. Willie just released his 8th studio album and is keeping busy taking jogs down lonesome country roads and also hosting his weekly Staying Home Again World Tour live streams every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central. Thanks again, and Willie, we'll hand it over to you.
Looks like you can hear me. I am unmuted by the host. All right. Hi, I'm Willie Wisely. Hey, I wanted to contribute a song to our collective call, to collective care today that was really germane to the holiday today. It's a song that I wrote with Michael Ryther, and he is an educator in the Bay Area. And he came to me a number of years ago to produce an album for him called Kids of the Earth, Songs for a Green Generation. So we wrote this one together, and I'm really proud to play it for you. It's on Michael's album, Michael Ryther with a Y, and it's called Kids of the Earth. So look it up and stream it on Spotify today. It's a perfect day for it. All right, and I'm going to have some special helpers here on the chorus, so I hope you enjoy. There's only one day to care for all creatures large and small. Only one day to repair the blue globe that unites us all. Just one day to think up solutions. Only one day to create less pollution. Why only one day to show our love to the planet we adore? We want more. Yeah, we want more. We want more. We want more. We want more. Why can't every day be Earth Day? Every day, let's all go green. Show the planet what she's worth today. She's a living, breathing thing. One day to give back, one day to lend her a hand. Is that all you've got for someone you call a friend? One day for her prairies and beaches, to praise her for all that she teaches. Why only one day to show our love to the planet we adore? We want more, right? We want more, we want more, we want more. Why can't every day be Earth Day? Every day, let's all go green. Show the planet what she's worth today. She's a living, breathing thing. Hey, let's run through the greenery. Let's kick off our shoes. Fall in love with the scenery in shades of green and blue. Why can't every day be Earth Day? Every day, let's all go green. Show the planet what she's worth day. She's a living, breathing thing. Repeat. She's a living, breathing thing. Planet Earth. She's a living, breathing thing. All right, there you go. Happy Earth Day, everybody. A call to collective care. Love it. Bless y'all.
Thank you so much, Willie. She's a living, breathing thing, and we'll try to see everything in green and blue just from that charge. So thank you so much. Up next, we also would like to welcome Ladon Hedefu and to welcome her perspective. And just a reminder, if you wanted to share your picture, please send it to Earth Day actually at mnipl.org and not to Julia's personal box. So sorry about that, Julia. And yeah, send it over to Earth Day. But Willie, thank you. And I just also wanted to acknowledge the comment to Louisa and other seniors who are graduating this year. Really wanting to send our hats off to you all and wish you a great next chapter in college. Thank you all for everyone who's chatting about that. And yeah, so Ladon, if you are ready, we're ready for you.
Hello. I am really blessed to be here joining this community of carers and lovers as we celebrate the planet that we call home. I wrote a piece last year for the Reviving Sisterhood's Expressions blog about my relationship with climate justice and its connection to Islam. So I'll just share a little bit about that. Around this time last year, I went to an Islamic lecture called Me, Myself, and Allah with Dr. Haifa Yunus, and it was a class that changed my perspective on a lot of aspects of faith, my connection with Allah, my connection with prayer, also my connection with nature. And so the class was called Me, Myself, and Allah. It wasn't called Me, Myself, and Nature, Allah. So imagine my shock to learn that studying, observing, being in nature are all forms of worship. Imagine my disbelief to learn that the 4 years I spent in basement labs were earning me bonus points with God. I was shocked. Not only was I earning credit while I was looking at zebrafish, but also God was like, yes, go girl. Probably not like that, but you know, that's the least blasphemous thing I could say right now. And so something that I really truly believe is nature and our connection to it, our desire to be in it, is an intrinsic part of aliveness. And I believe that we see ourselves in nature and the connections that we have to plants and animals and other humans are necessary for our continued well-being, not only spiritually, but physically and mentally. I believe that nature glorifies Allah, the greatness of Allah. It exemplifies the beauty and perfection of Allah. And it was through that continued observation and immersion in nature that I developed a deeper connection with God. And so, fun fact, I recently found out that there are over 700 verses or ayahs in the Quran referencing nature and discussing the beauty of nature. 700 verses talking about the very thing that we're celebrating today. And I just was blown away by that. And one of the central messages that keeps coming up over and over again about the environment is the preservation of natural resources. I know that balance and harmony are fundamental tenets in Islam and in faith in general. So the Quran reminds me every day that our reliance on the earth and should motivate us to treat all aspects of life with the utmost care and dignity. And so the takeaway for me, the reason why I care about climate justice is that I believe we cannot, in good faith, participate in practices that harm other living animals, other beings, that disrupt our ecosystems, whether it be for greed or for corporate capitalistic gain. We cannot continue to destroy the earth without there being consequences in our relationship with the Almighty. And that's why I love and care about climate justice, not just because it's earning me bonus points with God. So I hope that you all can continue to love and care about the earth, and again, not just for those bonus points. So thank you.
Thank you so much for those really great reflections. I love that Noshina, I wanted to shout out Rise since you work there, and also Noshina, your director's commenting, yeah, hashtag bonus points. I think all of us are motivated to do that. So thank you for sharing your contribution, and your surprise was also our delight. Really enjoyed your story. And up next, we want to welcome Senator Patricia Torres Rey and invite her to share her story and what Earth Day really means to her, or climate justice. So we want to welcome you. Thank you. We'll work on fixing your sound in just one moment. We'll unmute you. Again, we'd like to welcome you, Senator Torres Rey. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this wonderful, wonderful event. Perhaps many of you know that I ran for office in 2006, and Julia Narbonne was an important part of that election. Actually, she was my campaign manager. I ran for office in 2006 because I was deeply frustrated with this state's inability to address the deep inequalities that exist here. And as an immigrant who had a wonderful life in this country for 33 years, I had worked with many people of color and many indigenous people before I ran for office. So I knew their stories and I knew about their work, but I knew that their voices were not being heard at the legislature. That's why I ran for office. This moment, this invitation to share my story is helping me think about why is that I had this deep sense of frustration. Why is that it was so important for me to be able to speak up and to bring these stories to the legislature. And I think that was because I grew up in Colombia. Colombia is one of the most unequal countries in the world. the second in Latin America after Honduras. So I grew up in a country that was in conflict my entire life. I am thinking about how long Colombia has been in conflict, and it's so easy for me, 55 years. I am 55 years old. I can remember that. So my entire life in Colombia, I grew up understanding that conflict and poverty was part of many people's life. And as a young person that grew up in a country where people didn't talk about this conflict, didn't talk about their reality, was very frustrating to me. So imagine a high schooler, a 17-year-old, living in a country where guerrilla groups took over my country. We couldn't go out. Curfew was part of growing up for me. And I remember my young friends fearing graduating from high school because they probably were going to be drafted by the military. Actually, many of my friends did. My best friend Pedro was drafted by the military at the age of 17. And I remember us crying and trying to figure out who was going to take care of his guinea pig because he had to leave. We were so concerned about this guinea pig, and we forgot how concerned his parents were, how afraid he was that he was going to have to leave his family. He was 17 years old, and he left to fight the paramilitary groups, to fight these guerrilla groups at the age of 17. But we didn't talk about it. My friends never talk about it. His family didn't share their pain with my family, and we never asked. The children did, but we didn't know how this conflict came about and how Pedro had to leave his family at the age of 17. What I didn't know was that these tragic incidents, this separation of families, was more prevalent in areas that had oil and minerals. I lived in one of those regions in Colombia before I came to Minnesota. So I lived in a border town in the bottom of the Andean Cordillera, a very rich area. There is lots of oil in my neighboring district called Putumayo. Putumayo was a beautiful place. Putumayo was a place that was a mystery to us. And we were afraid that Pedro was going to be sent to Putumayo to fight when he went into the military. That was the biggest fear. What if Pedro has to go to Putumayo? The name of Putumayo was Gushing River. The original name of Putumayo was Gushing River. It is the home for the largest indigenous tribal groups in Colombia, but it is also the home of the transactional pipeline called Oleoducto Trasandino. That's the location for the Oleoducto Trasandino. Everybody called it OT. We really didn't know how dangerous OT was. But that was where Pedro was sent, quote, to defend our country, but it was really to protect OT and the owners of this pipeline. How ironic, I came to this country at the age of 23 to understand all of this. I am so grateful to Minnesota. It took me a long time. I wish I understood this when I was 17 and my best friend Pedro left, but I didn't know. I came here to learn about the connection of this pipeline to the world and to the conflict in Colombia. I learned this from my friend Winona LaDuke. I learned this from my friend Sharon Day. They were my mentors. They are my mentors. So now I know these pipelines are connected. Now I know that my family was trying to protect me from something that I should have known. Yeah, as a 17-year-old, I learned it as a 23-year-old, and I am so happy that I came here to learn this, to join my friends Winona LaDuke and Sharon Day, to protect our earth, to fight against these pipelines that create so much conflict, that send our kids to fight for something that we don't even know. I'm glad I'm in the Senate today. I'm glad I'm with you. And I'm glad that our children know these stories and they are not as naive as I was when I was 17 years old. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to think about my story and think about how my frustration came about. Now I want to do something with you to end these disparities that exist in this state, in this country, and in this world. And to do that, we must first take care of our planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Torres Rey. We really appreciate your story and your time. And I love the connection personally to hear more about Putumayo, because I've heard about a label, actually, a record label for a long time, and I really didn't even know it was connected to Colombia. So it's good to learn that. And yeah, we look forward to following your story and work on climate for our state. Next, we'd like to invite my colleague, Sam Benson. He's our a leader in our organization focused on policy. And he'd like to invite you to take an important step on this Earth Day. Sam?
Hi, my name is Sam Benson. And as Whitney said, I lead MNIPL's policy efforts as a staff member. As part of our commitment to advocating for climate justice, Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light supports and advocates for policies that help our state and country and world transition to a decarbonized and more just society. As part of those efforts, we support initiatives such as transitioning Minnesota to 100% renewable energy, opposing the building of oil pipelines, and expanding funding for public transit and electric vehicle infrastructure. As we move further into 2020, our policy focus is pretty rapidly shifting to the fast approaching November elections. In order to get real action to be made on climate change, it's really crucial for environmental minded voters like all of us on this live stream to turn out to the polls in large numbers. MNIPL, along with our partners and volunteers, is going to be working hard all the way up to November to turn out voters to the polls. Or depending on what things look like, voting from home or mailing in your ballots, making sure that all our votes are counted no matter how they're cast. You can commit to voting with climate as your top priority by signing our climate voter pledge. The link should be shared. Yep, the link has been shared in the chat, and you can follow it there. If you're interested in getting more engaged in our policy work, there's a checkbox at the bottom of the pledge that you can check, and myself or one of my colleagues will be following up with you with more information about how you can get more engaged. Or you're welcome to reach out to me directly at sam@mnipl.org. Thanks again, and yeah, hopefully we can all turn out and vote for climate forward policies this November. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sam, for the challenge to already start thinking about what does climate mean for upcoming elections, both in August and November. Next, we want to make sure that we bring more of you into this show, right? This is all about us as a community. So we'd like to share some of the photos that you've submitted. Just while we're pulling that up, I also wanted to stop talking so you can see the pictures. Great. I hope that you got to see yourself there. And if you didn't, don't forget to submit your picture to earthday@mnipl.org to include yourself in this great story we're building up today. Next, I'd like to welcome Imam Makram Al-Amin. He leads Majd al-Noor in North Minneapolis, where he engages a fast-growing, culturally diverse congregation and is the forefront of interfaith dialogue and neighborhood outreach. Majd al-Noor has recently done an extensive watershed management project on their grounds, becoming the first eco-mosque in Minnesota. With that, I'd like to welcome Imam Makram Al-Amin. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and good happy Earth Day to everyone on this 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And it's my pleasure to be here with you and sharing just some space, some virtual space to talk about something that I think is near and dear to all of us. You know, it's not coincidental us being in the midst of this pandemic right now, and just think about the you know, the tragic loss of life, and you know, it really brings home really the priority and what's the most important. And I think most of us, you know, as people of faith and people of consciousness, you know, want to live in a good, healthy mind, body, and spirit place that is nurturing to our very souls and our lives and, you know, our spirits. And but was one thing that I was you know, contemplating this and watching the news this morning, how we talked about the whole stay-at-home order and how it has the effect it has had on climate and the environment. And I was just taken by surprise of the reduction in air pollution and the greenhouse gases and the drop in oil prices and the reemerging of wildlife and all these other things that, you know, we are so important to us that seems so hard to figure out, you know, during normal times. You know, this time has ushered in you know, a way of self-correcting certain things, albeit through an existential threat and a looming scare that we're all really contending with. So I wanted to just, you know, acknowledge that in this moment of how God moves us to places and spaces He wants us to be, sometimes by very unconventional ways, you know. Yes, Masjid al-Nur is, we are striving to be an eco-friendly mosque. We've done many things, and you know, it's really a language that we've adopted to help us keep conscious about the fact that we need to be conscious of our environment and making sure that we're doing our part as good stewards in this environment, and making sure that we're leaving the earth in a better place than we found it, you know. And as I think about our water project, I was very reflective on the fact of how important this clean water is, and clean water, and just to our mind, our body, our spirit. You know, we all know and acknowledge the water crisis in Flint, Michigan, and other places around the country as well that is suffering from just not having this clean water, being able to go to the fountain and drink a good, wholesome glass of clean water, you know. And we're so privileged, those of us who can do that. While we might be suffering some disparity in one place or another, we're very much privileged when it comes to having water in many spaces and places. But that's not true for everyone. And I also, you know, I thought about, again, water and its significance in our faith tradition, and the ritual washing that we would do, the called wudu, the ablution, when we're purifying ourselves, getting ourselves ready and fit to be presented to God, as well as references in scripture about revelation itself and how it has the effect of water stirring the earth, and God talks about growing us like a plant. And these analogies, I think, are not missed with me. I think that there's something that we need to be much more connected, spending time in nature as much as possible as a means of really getting reconnected to the priorities of our spirit, our mind, our body, and our soul. So I wanted just to share just those few thoughts and few ideas on this very important day, Earth Day, and let you know that we're leaning in this with you as people of faith, as Muslim community, and we are glad to be in partnership with all of you. So thank you so very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imam Makram. We really appreciate your contribution, your work, and even what you're doing beyond just the climate. You know, I've heard a lot of stories about the food that you are delivering during this time to the community. I think over 400 meals a day, which is exceptional. So wishing you all success, and so grateful for the work that you're doing too. And with that, we'd also like to welcome Reverend Ruth McKinsey. She was so kind to submit a recording to us. So let's hear a little bit about her. She is a musician and Unitarian minister who serves First Universalist Church as the pastor, minister, and worship architect. Reverend McKinsey is passionate about movements for social justice and brings music, art, and a deep sense of community into all of her work. So let's hear from her. Thank you guys again for joining us. Send us a chat to let us know what you're loving about today. We'd love to hear from you there.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be with you today. Earlier this week, I had a dream about our rickety old compost bin in the back of our yard. In the dream, I throw open the lid of the bin, dump in a bucket of food scraps, then I grab some leaves, toss those on top, and let the lid clang shut. I turn and face the west. And then I see this beautiful old white pine tree in our neighbor's backyard. It must have been planted 70, 80 years ago, and it is magnificent, towers over everything. In the dream, I feel the sun on my face, the sway of the branches, and a voice comes over me. I don't hear the words exactly, but I know what it's trying to tell me. And what it says is, shit goes in and soil comes out. Not incredibly profound, but definitely true when you compost. The shit does go in and something rich and deep and life-giving comes out. Composting is part science, part artistry, part spirituality. In the winter, everything is pretty frozen solid. It's just a mass of leaves and food scraps and dirt left over from the summer. But in the spring, when the sun sits a little bit higher in the sky and things start loosening up, you can work with things. You can make room in the compost heap by turning things over. You can water it. You can work with balances, when to add things, when to subtract things, when to step back and when to step in. And when the compost heap is really cooking, when things are really starting to work, you can feel transformation. My friends, we are in the middle of a compost heap. Black writer and activist Sonia Renee Taylor writes this in an Instagram post. We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, disconnection, rage, and lack. We should not long to go back. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. We are experiencing our normal laid bare. The poorest of us, the most vulnerable of us, the most thrown away of us are bearing the heaviest burden of this crisis. 70% of the deaths in Chicago are Black people. Every death recorded in the state of Virginia is a Black person. Instead of decrying the fake crisis at the governor's mansion, we should be storming every governmental hall, decrying the normal of racism and inequity. Our supply chain and arrive just on time system of good and services is putting everyone at risk. Disasters do lay bare, and disasters create movement in frozen systems. Like a pitchfork shoved into the middle of a compost bin, COVID has made room for the seemingly impossible to happen. Increased worker rights, sick leave, renter protections, freeing imprisoned people, $1 trillion being moved around in a blink of an eye. We have known for decades that our way of making things, of consuming things, of getting things, is at war with the earth. We're witnessing what happens when we don't move around so much, when we don't buy so much, when we don't consume so much. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, carbon emissions around the globe have plummeted, and wildlife is getting a much needed break. In this moment of crisis, in the muck of our compost heap, we are being called to use our science, our artistry, our spirituality to see if we can work with this pile of shit and transform it into something rich and deep and life-giving. And we know how to do this as artists, as healers, as faith leaders, as activists. We know that the old polarities of right versus wrong, of happy versus sad, are simply not complex enough for the crisis that is before us. We are being asked to go deep instead of shallow. We know how to do this. Today we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and I'm pretty sure that's why I dreamed about a compost bin. I'm pretty sure that's why I looked to a beautiful, magnificent pine tree for its wisdom. And what I sense, rather than hear, is that everything is connected. Transformation is not only possible, it is upon us. We are in the midst of it. It is our spiritual work to bring about something rich and deep and life-giving in the process. We know how to do this. May it be so, and amen.
What powerful words, in so many ways. I'll just leave it at that, and really want to thank everyone for joining us again for Earth Day, and especially for those really, really powerful words from Reverend Ruth McKenzie. She's really challenging us to dig deep into things that really should just kind of feel natural to us. So in your tradition, in some tradition it's called fitra, in other traditions it's kind of like that natural state, something that you know already could be there. And that's a perfect way for us to transition into a reminder and introduction for some, I'm sure, if not everyone, about what you can do in your own household. So we'll transition to something from our climate justice household team. Stay tuned.
This is your introduction to the new Climate Justice Household Planner developed in 2020 by Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. Hi, I'm Catherine. I've been working on the climate crisis as one of my top commitments. I joined with Rita Erickson, Megan O'Hara, and Julia Nierboom and MNIPL to help individuals and households address the crisis with things we can do. The world is facing unprecedented climate challenges and now a global pandemic. We must remember we are not alone, and we can still work with our friends and partners to reduce our carbon footprint, organize political action, and build a movement. We have good tools to connect online to keep the work moving. The Climate Justice Planner will provide you with tools, skills, and support to make a plan and follow it. Beyond addressing our own climate footprint, we're committed to addressing the inequitable impact that the climate crisis has on our greater community. We join with youth and frontline communities to follow their lead. The Climate Justice Household Planner uses a three-legged stool to address all aspects of the crisis: the practical, the systemic, and the spiritual or relational. First, the practical focuses on what we can do in our own lives at home, work, and play. You'll be introduced to the carbon tracker built for Minnesota communities. The tracker tracks beyond utilities, adding diet, personal consumption, and home improvements to its measurements. The second leg of the stool is systemic. The household planner will help you organize your advocacy and political activities. The third leg is spiritual and relational. This crisis is a marathon, not a sprint. We must learn how to balance our health and well-being with the tasks at hand. We can call upon our faith traditions and wisdom, bring discussions of climate justice into our various communities so that we are not alone. The Climate Justice Household Planner relies on SMART goals to achieve our outcomes. It will help you to write goals that are clearly defined, measurable, worth doing, uses resources at hand, and are time-bound. Each of us on average spends 16 tons of greenhouse gases every year, and that's more than twice the global average. If the planner can help each of us reduce our carbon footprint and increase our organizational impact, we will be successful. There are 6 steps to creating your plan. The plan is free. Start by logging on to mnipl.org/household and signing up for your household or group or friends or neighbors. The second step is to gather your household or group for an in-person or virtual meeting to discuss your vision, goals, and commitments for the year. You'll be writing a vision statement. What do you plan to accomplish by the end of the year? Then you'll sign into the MNIPL Carbon Tracker. The tracker is an interactive online tool customized to assist everyone participating in our Climate Justice Household Program. The Carbon Tracker is built for Minnesota with links to statewide congregations. You can create a profile, determine possible actions to take, and link statewide to help others succeed. You'll build your household or group profile of your current carbon footprint. The tracker is a work in progress. We hope to add consumer goods in the near future, but you'll be adding all the kinds of demographics and current use that you have for your carbon. Then you'll see some suggested actions that the planner will recommend to you. They go from easy to medium to challenging. Then back to the planner. The 5th step is to formulate your own SMART goals. Again, for the practical, systemic, and spiritual and relational. And then you end by filling in the Household Climate Justice Plan form so that we can continue to send you resources and encouragement. Remember, all our personal actions support our political action. And here are the links to our Household Planner and Carbon Tracker. Thanks very much, and please sign up today.
So that was just a little bit of a commercial to invite you to take action during this COVID time. It's something that you can do with your family. It's not something that you have to go through a lot of approvals for. It's just you saying that you'd like to make those changes for you and your household. So links are in the chat if you want to follow up on that. Yeah, reach out and connect to the Climate Justice Household team. And next, we'd like to welcome Reverend Dr. Rebecca Vogel. She is dynamic in her own way, and more important, she is one of the pastors at Lyndale United Church of Christ, where she directs the Center for Sustainable Justice, a multi-faith organization working at the intersections of the LGBTQ, racial, food, and climate justice. Welcome, Reverend Dr. Rebecca Vogel.
Thank you so much. One of the traditions that has deeply shaped my heart, mind, body, and spirit is that of queer theology. And one of the practices within queer theology is to find ways in which spiritual texts can speak and embody a word for the present moment. And so as we grapple with COVID-19 and with the paradox of grief and colonization and fear on the one hand, and on the other, the extraordinary possibility for another world beyond this, I want to share with you a reimagining of the prologue to the Gospel of John. I offer it as a prayer of blessing. Will you pray with me? In the beginning were desire and longing. Desire for ecstasy and connection, and longing for the deepest of communions. And desire and longing were with God. And desire and longing were God. Desire and longing were with God in the beginning. In fact, they were the animators, the prodders, the relentless whispers, which propelled the explosion of creativity. Stars and planets and the whole company of creation. These all came into being out of that desire and longing. And not one thing would have been without the promise of ecstasy, connection, and communion. And then, as now, desire and longing were threatening to the forces of destruction, disconnection, dismemberment, and death. But then, as now, these did not prevail. And what came into being because of and through desire and longing were life, and life abundant. May desire and longing for life and life abundant, may they find us, may they claim us, may they impassion us and inspire us this day and every day. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Volkel. We really appreciate your contribution and hope that everyone continues to pray for what is important to them about climate, and also want to invite our next speaker, Reverend Kristen Foster, who's joining us from, from northern Minnesota. So after 3 decades of serving as pastor of an ELCA congregation on the Mesabi Iron Range, Kristen continues in leadership roles in the Iron Range Partnership for Sustainability, Congregations Caring for the Earth, and the Eco-Faith Network for the Northeastern Minnesota Synod. So welcome, Reverend Kristen Foster. Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thank you so much for letting Minnesota or the Iron Range. The Iron Range is our adopted home. My husband is from Atlanta, Georgia, and I grew up in a mid-sized city, Aurora, Illinois. And this is my story. Our home abutted a vacant lot. You need to capitalize vacant and capitalize lot. Although the vacant lot was far less than an acre, we children saw it as our wilderness, our jungle. Trees grew thick there, unkempt and undisturbed. We made paths through the vacant lot. We hid from each other. We staged battles. And the summer after my 4th grade year, I spearheaded the first neighborhood carnival, whose coup de grace was the jungle ride, Disney style, where one of the children pulled carnival goers in a red wagon through that jungle, the vacant lot, where wild beasts, actually our stuffed animals, and a bare-chested cannibal waited to frighten them. Well, we knew who owned the vacant lot, but honestly, it seemed like the kind of place that could not be owned. We saw the lot for sale sign go up and hoped that no one would buy it. One day, trucks and men and chainsaws arrived. Alarmed, we organized all the children in the neighborhood to come out with pots and pans to bang and signs to wave. We banged and waved and shouted, but no one could hear us over the buzz of the chainsaws cutting down our jungle. We ordered them to stop. We shouted out our fury until we literally lost our voices. We wanted to lunge at those monsters. How dare they cut down those trees? How dare they? But the next day they were back, and the next day, until the lot was bare, save for one beautiful maple left alone. I have felt that white hot rage that I felt that day many times over the decades since then, at injustice, at public lies, at attitudes that arrogantly diminish other people, at all the ways that power behaves as if it were immune, as if those trees, those children do not matter. It is difficult to know what to do with this rage, sometimes as a pastor, because being nice is part of our unwritten job description. Where does rage belong? But children and trees do matter. Children are the vocal cords of our capacity to see and tell the truth. Like Greta Thunberg, they are willing to say, "How dare you?" Trees matter for the very life of them. If children are truth's vocal cords, then trees are our lungs. We breathe differently when they surround us, and we cannot literally breathe without them. If we would save their forests and plant them, they might literally save us. In the language of Christian baptism, my language, we are called children of God and light of the world. To be a child means, among other things, the capacity for fury over the cutting down of trees, the desecration of vacant lots, the willingness to shout, "How dare you?" This is not the same thing as tired resentment. It is the raw edge of love. As Kate Marvel, climate scientist at the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies, wrote in a recent article, there's a difference between the small and insular resentment that festers in the dark. Excuse me. I must have been shouting, "How dare you," a lot lately. And the kind of illuminating fury that lights the way out of the tunnel. That's the fury I feel, she says. It's that incandescent rage, shining like a beacon through dark times, lighting the way to something better. Let's rage with love. Let us love fiercely. Let's be willing to say no and stop for love, as well as yes. Let's listen to children. Let's be the children of God we actually are. Let's declare a Jubilee year for Earth Day, not just today. Let's light the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that all of us would agree. We were following you and picturing your story and the little version of you and your friends. And really, I think it's a call to action and remembering that if children can take a stand like that, that we all can do so much. So thank you so much for that story. It'll really stick with all of us. And I see that Chris Grangard is also calling out, "Let us rage with love." So something that stood out to him or her. I'm not sure if that's a man or a woman. But I'd also like to invite you to another round of photos to bring more of your family and friends into the show again, into our time together. So with that, oh, Chris is also a movement builder. So sorry, Chris, we've probably talked. Someone just messaged me about that. So yes, and Diane agrees, let us rage with love. So let's stop again and just see more pictures of you all and look forward to continuing on for just a little bit more up to 3 o'clock. So thank you guys for staying with us. So before we get started, I just wanted to give this piece a little bit of an introduction. We're so grateful to the Reviving Islamic Sisterhood for contributing these short pictures and really wonderful compilation for Earth Day today. Thanks for sharing it with us, Noshina, and everyone at Rise. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to really looking at what are some other ways that we can take action. And we just had an invitation to think about what trees mean to us. And you actually can have the opportunity to plant one for free in your community. So I'd like to invite Michael Cheney and to also to show a video of Michael Cheney and to ask Analia to be ready to also join us in a moment. And so we'll hear from both Michael and Analia about an exciting initiative they call Family of Trees. Thank you to Michael and Analia.
North Minneapolis is going green. Give us a call and learn what we mean. Hello, my name is Michael Cheney. I'm the founder, executive director of Project Sweetie Pie, and I'd like you to come join with me and the Family of Trees in celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. The future is now. One tree standing, calling all humanity across this land to join us in this plan. A massive tree replanting as we replenish our green canopy, as we reduce the atmosphere to carbon free. Come take a stand, a collective call for national unity. Let's all plant a tree in honor of a loved one's memory. From sea to the shining sea, how do we save a planet sorely in need of healing? The family tree. I'd like to again invite you to celebrate Earth Day with us. Plant a tree at home in the safety of your backyard. Take a photograph, plant a tree, plant a flower, and join us. Send that in to us at thefamilyoftrees.org, www.thefamilyoftrees.
Hello again, everyone. So I just want to follow up with what Michael said. I actually recorded a video right after of us singing Happy Earth Day birthday together, but you know, technology nowadays. So I just want to invite everyone again to join us in supporting reforestation work in North Minneapolis. And we're really inviting everyone to join the Family of Trees. So there are a couple ways you can get involved digitally right now. There's a link here in the chat that's gonna go to our interest form. And I'm also going to include a little bit more, a link to our website as well. But so if you click on the link in the chat, you can sign the interest form and take, if you go to our website at www.thefamilyoftrees.org and take the pledge. This will allow us to determine who wants a tree, where our family's located around the state, hopefully around the country eventually. And then you can also select an option to either take a tree for yourself, have one delivered to you, depending on where you are. We'll have a couple drop-off pickup spots in the metro. You could also help us as we forge on to disperse trees in North Minneapolis and beyond. We'll need all the help we can get with that. You can also sponsor some trees to be dispersed in North Minneapolis or at a faith community or at your faith community that you know of. And so we've actually had quite a few of the first round of trees dispersed today and yesterday. And so if you are on social media, we invite you to record yourself with your tree once you get one. Record yourself planting whatever you're planting for Earth Day, just in honor of Earth Week. Take a picture, send it to us with your baby tree. I took one this morning. and post it on social media. So you can either send your pictures to our email. It's familyoftrees2020@gmail.com. You can post your image or your video on social media on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can use the hashtag FamilyTreeMN, and you could tag our profile at the Family of Trees in your photos. We'll be working on this initiative with my youth in the Youth Empower program over the summer, and we are so excited to have everyone join the family. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Analia, and to Michael for the great work that they're doing. I guess starting out of North Minneapolis and going out to other parts of our communities and states, and especially to your congregation. Feel free to bring that tree or plant that tree in your own community. Next, we are so happy to have Adam Levy join us. Adam is a singer-songwriter, guitarist, band leader, educator, and activist. Adam, we're so happy to have you, and thanks for joining us on Earth Day.
I am so glad to be here. Hello, everybody. Happy 50th birthday to Mother Earth. I wrote a song this week when I found out I was asked to talk a little bit or celebrate Earth Day with you all. So I wrote a song about the Earth and about us and our struggles right now. The song is called Rain in Jars, Ecological Melancholia. All right. Once there were pigeons like clouds in the sky, hide in the sun, hide in the sun. Once there were words upon which we agreed, the truth weighs a ton, the truth weighs a ton. Does it feel like a drop in the ocean? Is there nothing we can do? What's in your rear view? We are the dust from stars. We are the rain in jars. We are the shape of love. We are the taste of blood. We are the wind and fire, pebbles and mountains high. We are the tides of the sea. We are the moons in the trees. Lapis lazuli and indigo sky, dreaming of when we had skin in the fight. Anatolian sunrise, Wyoming twilight. Everyone's a winner, but nobody gets it right. Are we grieving something we haven't yet lost? We're gorging on sweets while our cookies are tossed. What's in your rearview mirror? We are the dust from stars. We are the rain in jars. We are the shape of love. We are the taste of blood. We are the wind and fire, pebbles and mountains high. We are the tides of the seas. We are the moon in the trees. Beach walks of petroleum colonial finds. A grapefruit sun eclipsing my mind. Making love on mountains of plastic debris. It's hubris to me. It's hubris to me. Does it feel like a drop in the ocean? Is there nothing we can do? What's in your rear view? We are the dust from stars. We are the rain in jars. We are the shape of love. We are the taste of blood. We are the wind and fire, pebbles and mountains high. We are the tides of the seas. We are the moons and the trees. Thanks a lot. Peace.
Thank you so much, Adam. We really, really appreciate it. What a beautiful, beautiful song, and ways that you just wove imagery of nature throughout your song and connected that to us. So thank you so much. And I see that people are commenting, Buff, I love the same phrase. Yeah, we are the shape of love. That stood out to me. I had that quote prepared. How perfect is that? And so if you're following the chat, you see that we're all kind of celebrating your music, Adam. So thank you. And I also saw that Kristen offered a message that maybe we all have a core memory of love for a specific place, like the one that's being described about that vacant lot and a hidden spring that motivates us consciously, unconsciously, and permanently. So something maybe to think about for the day. What's that moment, that specific thing that will connect you to this moment or that drives you to even be here today? So with that, we are so grateful to have Sosan Flynn to join us, who is a guiding teacher at Clouds and Water Zen Center in St. Paul. Whoa, our capital, St. Paul. So welcome, 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 Sosan. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually really, really happy to be following Adam Levi and that wonderful song. It's really fits in with what I want to invite us to do. I was thinking about how can we develop the resources to do this work for climate justice. And it occurred to me that we can rely on the earth itself as our resource. So I'd like to invite you to join me in a short meditation. And if you want, you can stand up for the meditation. You might want to, just because we've been sitting for a long time, many of us. So if you'd like to stand up, you can stand up, or you can do this meditation sitting down. So to begin with the invitation to just feel your feet on the floor or on the earth, knowing that even if your feet are on the floor, that they are supported by the earth. Your whole body is supported by the earth. And feeling the strength in your legs and your upright spine. And allowing yourself to notice your breath. Feeling the support of the earth. And notice your breath as it comes in. And your breath as it goes out. And knowing that in a certain kind of way, you are the earth breathing. We are not separate from the earth. And we can feel this in our bodies. We can feel this connection to the earth in our bodies. We can feel the connection as we breathe. As we feel our breath in our body. And knowing that wherever we are and whatever we are doing, that the earth is always supporting us. And we, as part of the earth, as not separate from, are always supporting the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Sosan. We really appreciate it. And I think you were just inviting us to be in tune with ourselves and to be connected to the earth, and also the opportunity to stand up if people needed to. So thank you so much for having that consciousness of what we can be doing in this moment, even when we're at home and on Zoom and not with each other. So thank you so much. And with that, we are so excited to invite Susan Mullen. Susan is, a senior, well, I should call her Reverend Mullen in this case. She's also my colleague, but I should call her Reverend Mullen in this case. Reverend Mullen is a senior faith leader at MNIPL. She has worked for many years as an environmental consultant before becoming a United Methodist clergywoman, and enjoys working with faith communities like yours to take action on climate justice. With that, I'd like to welcome Reverend Mullen.
Hi, everyone. I want to tell you about our Climate Justice Congregation program. At MNIPL, we believe that care for the earth and for all people are at the heart of our many diverse faith and wisdom traditions. Our desire for climate justice comes from the deep values we share as faith and spiritual communities. I hope you've been inspired, as I have been, by the spiritual leaders and musicians who have shared with us today. If you would like to gather a group in your faith or spiritual community, get organized to take action on climate justice, and join with like-minded faith communities to make a difference here in Minnesota, the best way to get started is to fill out an interest form. There should be a link in the chat box, or you can go to our website, mnipl.org, and click on Take Action, and then on our Climate Justice Congregation program. Fill out the interest form and we will contact you to set up an initial phone conversation. The Climate Justice Congregation program is a certification program. It's flexible, but for most congregations, you'll receive coaching from volunteers or staff for you and your team. We can help you with ideas on how to create or expand your team. We'll host an interactive conversation about climate and COVID-19 pandemic with members of your faith community. This conversation begins with stories of connection that center our conversations around what matters most to us. Then one or more people from your community will attend our Be the Spark organizer training. And this training will give you premier organizing tools to engage your community in climate action. We'll provide tools to help you create a simple action plan that's tailored to the goals, strengths, and passions of your faith community. We'll offer opportunities to join with other people of faith for collective action that's more powerful than any one congregation acting alone. To keep everyone safe during this pandemic, we are hosting everything online. This includes our coaching, climate conversations, Be the Spark training, and action opportunities. Find out more about our Climate Justice Congregation certification program and fill out an interest form by clicking on the link in the chat, or again, go to our website at mnipl.org and click on Take Action and Climate Justice Congregation program. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Really appreciate that invitation to, first we started off with one for households, and then the next is maybe taking it to your house of worship in ways that we can continue to build community and climate justice within our congregations. Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to introduce Reverend Frank Hornstein, who is a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives representing District 61A. He grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and enthusiastically participated in the first Earth Day 50 years ago. So what a fitting way to kind of bring that full circle today. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I really appreciate the wonderful staff of MNIPL for putting this together. You know, that first Earth Day was pretty incredible. I was a 5th grader in Cincinnati, Ohio, and In those days, we had a lot of great music on the radio. And so I listened to our local rock and roll station, WSAI AM 1360, every day. And those disc jockeys would talk about the new song by the Beatles or the new song by the Jackson 5. But one day, a few days before that first Earth Day in 1970, the disc jockey said in a more serious tone that Earth Day was coming up. And there are some things you could do on Earth Day. And as a fifth grader, I was listening very closely to this. He said, you know, maybe you could pick up litter on the way home from school or carry a sign. Maybe don't get in a car on Earth Day. So I decided to do all three of those things. I walked home from school on that 2-mile walk. I had a handmade sign that said, don't litter. And I told my mom, I don't want to ride home. You know, the neighborhood moms organized a carpool for that 2-3 mile journey back to our neighborhood from my elementary school. So I boycotted getting in a car that day. And I didn't realize at the time that there were 20 million other people doing something very meaningful that day in 1970. There were teach-ins, there were rallies, there were neighborhood cleanups. And so a seminal moment started in the environmental movement. And out of that movement came landmark legislation, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, the Endangered Species Act, and so many more. And those laws have made such a difference. We've cleaned the air, we've cleaned the water. You know, one of the things I was thinking, why would a fifth grader in Ohio be so concerned about the earth? But we paid attention to the news, and a river caught on fire in Ohio, the Cuyahoga River, a year before that first Earth Day. What does it mean when a river catches fire? I was old enough, I wasn't a scientist, but I kind of knew that it was really the opposite. Water quenches fire. But that river was so polluted that it caught fire, the Cuyahoga River near Cleveland, Ohio. And so that river's clean now as a result of those Earth Day activities. So where do we go from here? That was a grassroots movement that resulted in so much change. And now we have 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds and high school students and college students and young people that are at the vanguard of a new environmental movement. And I think of them. I think of them today because they are now creating what we need to do on the issue of climate change. The Sunrise Movement, so many other organizations and groups that are really pushing all of us to do better when it comes to the environment, when it comes to climate justice, when it comes to really addressing this climate emergency that we're in. So now we need to create that spirit of the first Earth Day, a new movement to stand on the shoulders of those people that started that, Senator Gaylord Nelson and others in 1970, and those 10-year-olds that may be not able to walk home from school today, but we know that they are the guardians of our future, building that new movement for climate justice as we move forward on this Earth Day. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this story.
Thank you so much for joining us and making it more of a Midwest story today. So thank you so much for sharing that. And with that, I also want us to virtually welcome, although we won't have Jim Bear Jacobs with us today, we're really excited to have a video from him. He's a member of the Stockbridge Munsee Mohican Nation and a cultural facilitator who works to raise the public's awareness of American Indian causes and injustices. Jim Bear is a founder of Healing Minnesota Stories and the director for racial justice at the Minnesota Council of Churches. If you've met him, he's an absolute delight, and we're happy to show his video now.
Hey friends, I want to take a few minutes to tell you the story of a tree, the eucalyptus tree. You no doubt have heard of the eucalyptus tree. It's native to Australia, and in Australia it is a very dense, very hard, very rigid wood. And it was these characteristics that actually brought the eucalyptus to the United States. Back in the 19th century, railroad barons determined that the characteristics of this eucalyptus wood would make it perfect for constructing railroad ties, as the railroad was being built all up and down the West Coast. But something strange happened when they planted these trees in California. See, in Australia, there is a pattern to their growth. And when they placed the trees in California, that pattern of growth was totally reversed. It basically grew in the wrong direction. And this took away all of the strength and all of the rigidity out of the wood, basically making these eucalyptus trees now totally useless. Not a resource that can be utilized for any type of building. And when I told this story to an Aboriginal Australian friend of mine, she gave me an insight that I think lends a lot of meaning to this story. She said that these trees, her relatives, having been basically stolen out of their native soil, that in this new land, they chose weakness. They chose uselessness. And in so doing, they usurped the extractive capitalist plans for them. And I think that is a beautiful story. And it gives a lot of meaning, especially on this Earth Day. You see, our actions to save the environment, whatever they are, from protesting, from signing a petition, from transitioning off of fossil fuels into renewable resources, every time we do that, we are making ourselves useless to extractive capitalism. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. And the story doesn't stop there. Because these trees were now useless, they were totally left alone. There was no reason to harvest them. There was no reason to cut them down. And so these trees flourished all along the California coast. And what happens now is that when the monarch butterflies fly south for their migrations into Mexico and Central America, these trees, these eucalyptus trees, are their primary preferred resting place. And so it's not uncommon that when the migration takes place, you can look up into these trees, and a single tree can hold tens of thousands of these butterflies. And some scientists are even crediting these trees as one of the primary, if not the primary, reason that is saving the western migration of the monarch butterfly. So if you think about it, these trees chose weakness, chose uselessness to usurp extractive capitalism. And in so doing, for the monarch butterfly, they're saving the world. I think that's a beautiful message on this Earth Day. That we need to make ourselves useless to extractive capitalism. And in so doing, we will save the world. Happy Earth Day, everyone. My hope for you on this day is that you will go out there and in some way, in some small way, make yourself useless. God bless.
Thank you so much again to Jim Bear Jacobs for his message and a really important reflection about ways that we can decide to be useless or useful today. And for those of you who contributed photos, we also wanted to thank you for that. So we're going to have another segment of of bringing in you to this really wonderful live stream. So happy again that you all were able to do that, and here we go. What a gorgeous set of pictures and important messages. It's exciting to see what's motivating people to stand for climate justice. And with that, we're going to move on to an important message from Father James McKinney. Father McKinney, welcome. We can't hear you just yet, so we'll fix the sound for you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Thank you so much.
Okay. My first impulse to become a client activist or an activist of any merit occurred in my late teenage years when I was realized that my family shared in a stigma common to a significant portion of the Earth's population. Like millions of other Americans, they did nothing wrong, but inherited a genetic predisposition to mental illness they had no control over. I was embarrassed and even more so angry that people could be stigmatized for a genetic inheritance that brought injustice instead of the justice that could bring healing and the respect to which good people are otherwise entitled. So 20 years ago, right after I was ordained into the priesthood, I founded the Peace of Mind Project, a charity that has placed millions of public service announcements around the country, promoting, educating, and supporting people who suffer from that unwanted disease. While studying for the priesthood, I learned that Catholicism has a tradition well over a century old called Catholic social justice. So I felt very comfortable adopting the broader tenets of that tradition. And I claim that as my second vocation within a vocation. So I am a creation care activist, but only as a function of being first a social justice activist. And I can only claim that latter distinction since 2015 or thereabouts, when Pope Francis convinced me that climate change was an existential threat that dwarfs any other injustice, including the current pandemic crisis. And there are marked similarities between what drew me into mental health activism and the existential crisis of our common home, as Pope Francis refers to our planet. Like the burden placed on the backs of the mentally ill, there is the incredible injustice of those around our planet who suffer the most from climate change destruction while being the least responsible for it. And both forms of such injustice share the same familiar victims: the poor, the very young and the very old, the marginalized, the alienated and the stranger, and the forgotten. I was once embarrassed and even angry about my family's struggles with mental illness. Today, I'm embarrassed and angry about what our country has failed to do and the way that it has addressed our pandemic crisis, and even more so for our country's failure to address the even greater crisis of climate change. but as a believer in a personal, just, and loving God or higher power who constantly offers life. I'm ultimately a person of hope, inspired by the positive energies of all gathered here today. And I'm entirely committed to restoring this beautiful country and the earth that nourishes us to once again be all that it was meant to be. Thank you very much.
Father Kinney, thank you so much again for joining us, and my apologies for adding a Mick there before. So we're so grateful to have you with us and representing 3 churches in northwestern Wisconsin, up in the Lake Superior IPL. So thanks for being with us. And then we're so grateful for all of the speakers that we've had today, all the stories that have been shared, all the calls to action. And so we have one final speaker for you and a way that you can make an impact. We're excited to introduce Bob Blake, who is a solar outreach coordinator for MNIPL, and an opportunity again for you to take action. Thanks, Bob. Bob, we're gonna fix the sound for you so that you're unmuted. But we can see the passion coming through. Sorry.
Did that go?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Whitney. Sorry about that, everyone. Technical difficulties. Hello, my name is Bob Blake, and I'm one of the organizers here at MNIPL. And I am thrilled to be with you today as we gather to support our communities, our planet, and one another in a call to collective care. We are experiencing a harrowing moment of deep uncertainty and deep challenging. Many of us are suffering and many of us are worried. We also know that we have an opportunity to support one another, to engage in profound acts of care and nurturing, knowing that our humanity lies in our interdependence to each other, to our planet. Many folks on this live stream today have asked for your energy and for your action. I am here to ask for your money. If you're someone who has access to resources right now, you still have an income or other forms of financial security, then you have an amazing opportunity to act meaningfully on your values of cooperation and interconnection by making a financial gift to sustain our movement. We know that in moments like this, we have a choice. We can choose to embrace both our fear and our power, and we can choose to act together for a greater good. If you're able to do so, I'm asking you to make a financial contribution to Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light so that we can continue our work into the future. You can make your contribution at mnipl.org. I'm especially excited to ask you to become a sustained member of MNIPL's by committing to a recurring monthly contribution of any amount, which allows us to plan for bigger and more ambitious work during times of change. I'm also asking you to match your contribution to MNIPL with an equal contribution to the American Indian Community Housing Organization, or ACO. ACO is an Indigenous-led organization based in Duluth that invests in people's basic needs such as shelter, housing, support, while also working towards structural and systemic change so that our communities have the sustainable resources they need to have. ACO is a leader in the movement for climate justice and in the movement of COVID-19. They need our support now more than ever. You can make a contribution to ACO at. Thank you, everyone, for so much for everything that you do towards the work of justice in the world. I'm so glad to be a part of this, and I will look forward to being with all of you again very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Bob, for that reminder to give if we're able to during this time. This is the end of our program, but first I want to quickly thank all of the speakers and the planning team. So Ben Connolly, Liz Loeb, Devin Coupry, Joe Mainholz, Carissa Verdure, sorry, Carissa, of course, she's the host and really running this whole thing. And of course to our co-host for this whole show, the MNIPL base and community, Minnesota Multi-Faith Network and their base, and the Kaleo Center and other organizations. We could not have done this without the larger Earth Day planning team. So thank you, thank you, thank you for everyone who is a part of the volunteer team, the staff, and especially to all of you at home who really make the joy of putting this on possible. Wishing you all a happy 50th anniversary of Earth Day and a great day with the rest of your families. And I hope you get a chance to enjoy this beautiful day outside. Thanks again. Have a great day, you guys.